Tucker right with him. Curry launches a three. Puts it in again! Steph Curry from downtown!
He's gone.
We're alone. Ah, great galaxies, it's over. He had it in the bag. There's no one left. It's the end. It's over. The Earth is doomed.
There's 2 basketball games in my life that I've been so disappointed with the results that I woke up the next morning and my head actually hurt. That's only ever happened to me twice in my life. One was in Game 6 of the 2013 finals. I woke up that next morning and I was just miserable. I was in the gym working out and I felt like I got hit in the head the night before because I was ready to see the Miami thing end. I wanted, more challenges in the East. I wanted to be suspenseful about who was coming out of the East every year, and I just didn't feel that way back then. And to see the Spurs come so close to winning, where like everything had to go wrong and it did go wrong, I woke up the next morning with a mean headache. It lasted for hours. Today is the only other time that's ever happened in my life, and it's 6 years later. And I am so disappointed with the events of like the last 2 or 3 days. I am massively disappointed. I'm so disappointed that I might drop 2 videos today. This one is just kind of the talk about the game. And on the main channel, I might actually go through and show what happened in like the 4th quarter of that game, because the Rockets, man, this is why I waited till this morning to record, because last night I was going to do it and there was just too much that had happened in that game. There was just way too much to go through. I couldn't bring myself to do it. So after all that hype, we're not even going to get a Game 7, guys. We're not going to get a Game 7. Golden State has advanced to the Western Conference Finals for the 5th time since 2015. They are going to get Kevin Durant back at some point, and I don't believe that the Nuggets or Blazers stand the chance once KD does come back. I just don't think they match up well. I think the Warriors' firepower speaks for itself. But before we even get that far, let's just talk about what happened. Let's go in order. Let's go in chronological order. So Game 5 was probably a very gift-wrapped scenario for Houston at the end, because I don't want anybody to think I'm taking credit away. Not even credit. I don't want anybody to think that I'm underrating Golden State without Kevin Durant, because that's not what's going on here. Listen to what I say. In Game 5, when they lost Kevin Durant, everybody, including the players on the court, thought it was a torn Achilles. They thought they were going to have to deal with him being out for the rest of the run. They thought their teammate, their brother, was in the locker room with a potentially career-altering injury, and that can be pretty deflating. But they showed a certain amount of championship resolve that is it's impeccable. The Warriors really at this point, they should kind of be solidified in most people's minds, or at least respected, because to still be able to go and pull out that game, especially when Houston had already surged back, they had the momentum in that game. They had taken the lead after being down by like close to 20 points. That was a game where you could have easily seen it just falling apart for Golden State, because this is their now 5th year trying to make a run at a title. That gets tiring. It could have easily just ended right there, and it didn't. And with Houston being the underdogs and trying to beat the Warriors for so long, because they've now lost to the Warriors in 4 playoff series dating back to 2015, that was the chance to change everything, to grab that win and to go home and eliminate them, because you knew Kevin Durant wasn't going to play regardless of what that injury was. You were pretty sure he was not going to play. So that did not happen. Golden State pulled that game out, and credit to them. It's not all about just the Rockets failing. It is so much more than that. The Warriors, when you think people are just talking in hyperbole or whatever, or exaggerating whenever they say championship DNA and they use all these vague terms, no, those are real things. If you ever want to know what championship DNA is, it's these last 2 basketball games from the Golden State Warriors. That's the whole thing right there. It should not just be dwindled down to, oh, the Warriors had a 73-win team without Kevin Durant. This is a different team. This team, the supporting cast is 2 years older, and it's much different. So that leads us to Game 6, because it used to be called Strength in Numbers. Back before the Warriors had Kevin Durant, when their supporting cast was there, it was called Strength in Numbers. They didn't have those names anymore. Those were guys like Festus Ezeli, Maurice Spates, Leandro Barbosa. It was a lot of different guys back then. Game 6 was just a next man up scenario. Curry got into foul trouble. He played very poorly in the first half. So Klay Thompson carried the offense, and you just got some incredible minutes from guys that most people would laugh at. Kevon Looney, I said in yesterday's video on my main channel, I told y'all he had glowed up, and he came in and just did everything I was talking about. The offensive rebounds, just being there in those 50-50 balls. The Warriors got valuable minutes in lineups that are not supposed to work. When you got Kevon Looney and Sean Livingston out there and Quinn Cook, no disrespect, not saying he's a bad player or anything, but these are not the lineups that you think about when you think of Golden State. Alfonso McKinney. And with Curry having an off night, everything going the way it's supposed to for Houston, it was tied at halftime. It was tied. So I was watching that game unbothered because I really thought Houston was going to be able to capitalize on the situation and that we were going to get a game 7. But the longer the game wore on and the more resolve I saw from the Warriors, I had to kind of accept where it was going, because every time Houston would pull away, you were getting sharp shooting threes from Iguodala. You don't just like want to leave Iguodala open, but out of the options that you normally have in Golden State, if he shoots, you're like, we'll take it. And he had about 5 or 6 threes, and all of them were important. They were all when Golden State was, it looked like they were finally falling out of it. It looked like they might unravel soon and be down 10, and it just never happened. They kept staying in the game until we got to that tight fourth quarter. And Steph Curry just flat out showed why the Warriors have been champions, why they have this dynasty run. They may have a stacked roster, but when shit hits the fan like this, because shit had officially hit the fan when Kevin Durant went out, and their roster depth was not there, and the Rockets had already been competing with them with Kevin Durant, that was a shit hits the fan scenario. And Curry came out and torched them. He lit them up. Even on the plays they played good defense, Curry lit them up. And do you know those moments when you know that you're watching NBA history unfold before your eyes? That was the moment I was having when Curry, he hit his hand again, and it was like I guess they were fighting for the ball, and Curry came up, and you could tell he was holding his hand with the dislocated finger. So safe to say he hit that again, and the game was still close at that point. It couldn't have been any more than like 1 or 2 points or something. It was like a 1-possession game. And so Curry, it looked like in any regular scenario, he probably would have went to the locker room and got that worked on, but he did everything he could to stay in the game. And I believe he hit a 3 after that. And when he hurt his finger and it looked like he was walking away, like he was just trying to bear it, part of me knew the game was over then, because when he stayed, I was like, he's staying for one reason. He's staying because he knows if he goes out right now and Houston wins and they gain this mental edge going back to game 7, and Golden State is already extending themselves pretty deep, pretty thin with this with the lack of depth that they had on this roster, he knows that might be the edge that Houston needs. And he stayed in and gave an all-time performance. And so yesterday's video that I posted, I believe it was yesterday, it was about the legacy that was on the line in this game. For Chris Paul and Harden, these next 2 games, because it was supposed to be 2 games, were going to be the most important of their careers. For Steph Curry, it was a chance to prove to everybody, including people like me who have said, you know what, we haven't seen Steph Curry under true pressure since Kevin Durant got there, because there's never been a situation where you looked at it and said, Golden State is the underdog in this situation. It hasn't happened. So you guys remember when I made the commentary about what it's going to take for him to be the greatest point guard of all time, and the commentary about people are going to question his legacy once again once Kevin Durant leaves. This was the one chance, because they're going to have Kevin Durant back, I would assume, pretty quickly in this next series. This was one of those chances where Steph Curry could step up and show that just because he hasn't really had crazy pressure since Kevin Durant came, there's no questions about this guy. It's all sunshine and flowers with the super team, but when it comes down to it, that performance last night said everything. It should answer every question anybody has. This guy and the Warriors in general, they're for real. It would have been very, very easy for Golden State to roll over and die in this series, because when KD went out and Curry was already hurt, it was extremely easy for this to be a scenario where, oh, it's their 5th run and it's just time for a change. This thing is over for them. They're not hungry anymore. That could have happened so easily. As a matter of fact, that's really where these stories normally go. And it didn't happen. That was a big moment designed for the best players, and Curry stepped up right in the most crucial scenarios of that moment. And so on Houston's side, Chris Paul played a great game. I was saying, because Chris Paul, he's getting older. He was even limping during last night's game. He rarely takes big guys off the dribble anymore. Chris Paul is aging out right before our eyes. It's happening. He's probably got, what, like 2 seasons left? And I actually, people said I shouldn't have felt bad for him, because they were saying like, well, he played bad the whole series, so you shouldn't feel bad. But I was like, man, last night you could tell he really came out and was like, these last 2 games, or what is supposed to be the last 2 games, is our best chance. And he hooped last night. He did. There was sets in Houston's offense where sometimes it's just James Harden running the offense, and then sometimes it's Chris Paul. And Chris Paul, he was in his bag. In those ISO situations where they just needed to create a bucket, Chris Paul went in his bag late sometimes. And so then there's the conversation about James Harden, and maybe this will come in my main channel video later today. There's a channel on YouTube I really love called Thinking Basketball. It's actually like my favorite, I think that's my favorite NBA YouTube channel. The guy is just really, really great for breaking down the game. And he does a video on James Harden yesterday because, you know, everyone was saying that James Harden got way too passive in Game 6 and where was he because he only took 1 shot at the end of the game. So he did a video and broke down Harden's performance. He broke down everything that went on there and actually showed that James Harden really did make the right basketball plays at the end of that game, in that it created open shots for his teammates, and that in the possessions that he was involved in, he basically did what he was supposed to do. He didn't go into hero ball mode. And maybe that's what people want from James Harden in moments like this. They want him to go into hero ball mode because nobody likes to have to do the type of analysis that that channel did to find out what was the best player on this team's impact at the end of a game. So then we go into last night, and Harden's impact compared to Curry's in the 4th quarter, it looks kind of scarce on the surface. He did have like an important, maybe like 2 important threes there at the end. He did have that, so he didn't just not shoot at the end, because in Game 6 he didn't even have a shot attempt. And then it goes to things like, well, how was Golden State defending him? Because they did a lot of things in this series where you could tell they were trying to keep him, they were trying to discourage him from being aggressive. They would have the defense loaded on him. And then there was, aside from them discouraging him, that was just James Harden's game. Sometimes James Harden's game is just to step back or sidestep a 3-pointer, kind of regardless what's going on. I kind of felt like there was times where he should have drove to the rim and he opted for a 3 instead. But regardless of anything, here's my issue. You saw what Curry did in this 4th quarter. And it wasn't this thing where we have to analyze for the best basketball play or what was the right move here. Curry took over the way that a star player, the best player on a team at any given time, is supposed to take over in those huge moments. But my problem with Harden in these moments in the last 2 games, and maybe it's just inherent in the way that Houston plays and the way that he plays, because he's going to opt for the 3 pretty much as possible, and the contested 3 and the very tough shot. Maybe it's just inherent and it's designed by Houston, how Houston plays, so it's supposed to happen, and maybe it is the right basketball play. But maybe that's why they keep coming up short. Because I really wanted to see Harden put more pressure on the defense in these crucial moments of these last 2 games, and not just this thing where he swung the ball to the correct person and the correct thing happened there. This is the part of basketball that you can't explain about greats that we've watched in the past. This is why numbers don't always tell the full story. This is why advanced stats, all these attempts to explain some of these greats that we've seen, this is why they don't always work, because sometimes the greats in these big moments, they were just killers. The ball was in their hands, they were putting pressure on the defense, they were doing something that when you got done with that game, you didn't have to go through and analyze every single possession to find out where his impact was. So as I'm getting ready to do after I finish this video, I'm sure when I go back and I look at the tape, I will see that maybe James Harden did what he was supposed to do, or it was just a part of Houston's set or whatever. And okay, I'll accept that. This is just how Houston plays sometimes. Sometimes Chris Paul takes over the offense. Sometimes these plays are just designed to get an open 3. Okay, I will accept that, but this is why Houston goes home against the Warriors all the time. This is why Kobe Bryant, when he was asked by Rachel Nichols, he was asked if he thought Houston could win a championship like this season or last season, and he said no, not with the way that they play. And it's shown through. It's shown through in this series. I think what makes it difficult, why Houston is always ever so close to beating Golden State, but they don't get there, is because it relies on some really tough shots sometimes. Meanwhile, you'll see Golden State creating penetration and getting wide open layups at the rim. You'll see them running screen action and getting just enough space to actually get a good look at the basket. Those are the little things that Golden State does a tad bit more than Houston does, and that's why they keep coming out with these wins. There was a crucial play where Steph Curry was able to get right to the rim, and James Harden was guarding Sean Livingston on the perimeter. I'm pretty sure James Harden was supposed to be the help man in the situation that I'm referencing, and he just swiped at Curry. That's all he did. He just did a left-handed, no effort swipe, and Curry got straight to the rim. He didn't come over, he didn't show, he didn't really help. Little things like that is why Houston wound up losing. James Harden shot uncharacteristically bad from the free throw line last night. They could have used those points. There's just, you know, there's right basketball plays and there's all this, but I wanted more from Harden. I did. And it didn't have to be hero ball. It did not have to be ridiculous hero ball. He didn't have to take every single shot in the fourth quarter or anything, but I just needed more. In these last 2 games, there is much to be desired. And I don't know how Houston fans cope with coming this close for the last 2 games. Sorry, the last 2 games and the last 2 years. Coming this close to beating Goliath. I feel bad for Houston fans because this is hard to live with. I feel like I've just watched the mid-2000s Suns. It really feels that way, like you're watching this team that's always right there. You always know they're going to be in the thick of things at the end of the season, and it just doesn't happen. This must be what it felt like to watch Dirk Nowitzki from like 2006 to 2008 or 2005 to 2008 or whatever. This must be what it felt like. Because they would come close often. People forget that about Dallas. They were right there as well. Or they had great seasons and just didn't get it. They just didn't get to it at the end. It really feels like I've just watched that. And yeah, I'm so disappointed because I was definitely looking forward to like a different finals this year. I really wanted to see another team. I just want suspense back, man. I just want suspense back. And at this rate, it looks like we're going to have Golden State get Kevin Durant back in the next series and go to the NBA Finals. And you know what this reminds me of? This year reminds me of 2017. Because in 2017, the Cleveland Cavaliers, they were running through the East at such a pace that it actually tricked me for a split second into thinking that they could actually compete with Golden State. Their offense was so potent that despite their lack of defense, I actually wound up changing my prediction that year. I had first said Golden State in 5, which is how it actually happened. Then I said Golden State in 6 because I just couldn't imagine that Cleveland team losing in 5 games. Because if you guys remember that 2017 run, it was just, they were just destroying the East. And that's low key, I feel like deja vu. I feel like I'm watching it happen again with the Bucks. I feel like the Bucks, they just set some record with how they've beaten teams in the Eastern Conference. And I feel like they're the favorites right now. But when it comes down to it and you put them on the floor with Golden State, I feel like they're going to get killed just the way Cleveland did. They're going to look so good in the East. You're going to question yourself. You're going to say, how could this team possibly lose to this way in the finals? How could they just go out like everyone else? And then they're going to go out like everyone else. I feel like that's what we're going to watch. That's if they beat the Raptors, but the Bucks are really good. I could see that happening. And yeah, so after Houston, this is kind of how I felt going into this playoffs regardless. I felt like Houston was really the only chance. I felt like Golden State, they'd been trying to make this run for so many years, and then they run into Houston in the second round. I felt like that was the little wrinkle that kind of gave me hope. Because last year it was a conference finals, but meeting them this early, I was thinking maybe, just maybe. And we got ever so close, and it didn't happen. So Houston was really my only hope. I don't think there's anybody else left. I think Golden State is, unless Kevin Durant just misses more time than we're expecting right now, because so far we've heard that maybe like a week or something, he'll be reevaluated in a week, and we don't know how much time he's going to miss, but anything less than him missing like most or all of next series. And to me, Golden State is well on their way to a three-peat. They prevailed. Steph Curry prevailed.